بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Alhamdulillah, this is a weekly open Q&A session, and the idea is to ask questions related to religious guidance. We avoid questions related to controversies or polemics or things like that. And the floor is open, inshallah. We have some questions already. Go ahead.
First question is, I've been told that people who suffer from mental illness may be exempt from certain aspects of Sharia. If that's the case, so why is suicide punishable, given that a lot of people that commit suicide surely have some sort of mental illness?
Okay. So, Bismillah. There's two broad, our religion is a religion of, this is the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the all-wise, the all-just, the all-merciful. And in that, right, not everything is black or white, right? There's also gradations in between. So when we look at usul al-fiqh, there are those who are considered morally responsible, right? Who's the sane adult, who's an adult with full legal capacity, right? And then you have those who don't have legal capacity, children, such as children or the insane, right? Those without legal capacity. But then there are also intermediate cases, because with children, there's a difference between the young child and the discerning child, as-sabiy al-mumayyiz, right? And the child is gradually morally responsible, right? Without being morally accountable, right? It is a responsibility granted as training for when they hit adulthood. Right? So they're generally encouraged, then specifically encouraged, then commanded with respect to the obligations. Similarly, not all those lacking mental capacity, right, short of full sanity, are at the same level. Right? So you have what's called al-majnoon, right? Someone who's legally insane, right, or lacking legal capacity. But then there are different cases of insanity. Right? There are some people who are bereft of sanity, right? Who day in, day out, they're not able to discern and distinguish between benefit and harm, right and wrong. They're not able to make informed choices. And that's one type of insanity. It's called al-junun al-mutbiq, the insanity that lasts. But then there's also al-junun al-tariq. There's incapacity that affects someone, that they may be sane at times and lacking sanity at other times, right? And certain cases, that are, for example, in our times, like someone who's bipolar, for example, etc. In intense cases, they could be oscillating between when they have capacity and when they don't. But then there's also an intermediate state between full legal capacity, the aqil, and the majnoon, the legally insane, or the one without legal capacity, which is someone with partial legal capacity, which is called the ma'tuh, right? And a person with partial legal capacity, they're treated like the discerning child, that within to the extent of their capacity to discern, they're encouraged to do the good. But they're legally, so they're encouraged to uphold legal responsibility in the things within their capacity, but they're not ultimately legally accountable, right? Just like a discerning child, right? So different cases differ. Right? Different cases differ with respect, and ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah does not hold the soul responsible for more than its capacity. Right? Now outwardly we have a very nuanced, balanced, fair set of legal criteria by which to outwardly judge different types of individuals and their capacity, right? So that we are able to guide them towards their best interests. But ultimately everyone, Allah knows every single person and where they are with respect to their responsibility, right? So when it comes to suicide, the ruling of suicide is that committing suicide is prohibited. Right? And suicide is itself a major sin. Right? However, committing suicide is not kufr. Right? Sins are one thing, disbelief is another. Right? So, just as we preserve the lives of others, the first life that we preserve is our own. Right? And no one should willfully take their life. And that has implications in terms of end-of-life issues and so on. Right? However, if someone commits suicide, we don't hasten to judge. We don't hasten to judge. We don't know what triggered that. Like, is it, what was their mental state, and what would we call legal capacity at the time they made that decision, right? But the action is incorrect, and we have to be sensitive. Firstly, with respect to the person themselves, we don't know what state they were in. Number two, you also have to be sensitive to the living. Right? Their family has suffered a serious loss and so on, and so, but at the same time, we don't affirm the absurd. We are not, just as we're not there to judge in the accusational manner that was wrong, they're going to hell. Who are you? Are you the Lord? At the same time, we don't go into conjectural ruling as well. Oh, Allah will forgive him because he was in a bad situation. Like they say, it's not your decision to make. It's not your decision to make, right? And these are sensitive situations. Most of the times, these kinds of confusions arise when things like that happen, right? If within a family, within a community, right? Trouble arises in these kinds of difficult situations because of one of two reasons. One is from people who take religion directly from texts without appreciating their context and understanding. Right? So people say, oh, there's hadith that the person who commits suicide will be punished forever. No, there isn't. That's not what the hadith is saying. Right? What is the mafhum of what is the understanding, sound understanding of that hadith? Right? That's one danger. And the connected danger is, especially of the application of specific rules to particular situations, right, is a specialized skill, right? And that's why communities require scholars, right? That scholars of guidance, that when people deal with a sensitive situation, how do you deal with it with these considerations, right? And one cannot take a ruling from a book and apply it to a specific situation just like that, without training, because the harm would be greater. There's likely harm. Right? There's likely harm. Right? So that's where a lot of these things arise. Right? We should heed the divine command that فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ, ask the people of remembrance, إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, if you know not. Right? And this, of course, requires attention to be supporting institutions and so on that facilitate scholars to be teaching in their communities, right? That we have to have people in every community. It is obligatory, the fuqaha state, that there be fuqaha, that there be jurists who have the capacity, who have learnt our religious tradition soundly and reliably, and who are trained to apply that to the social and lived context of individuals and communities that they operate in, right? And that's critical. And we have grave shortcomings in that around the world, right? And that's of the most incumbent of furud al-kifaya, of communal obligations. Go ahead.
So, related to that, if one has a learning disorder, is it mandatory to learn the prayer?
One has a learning disorder, I mean, depends on what the nature of the learning disorder is, right? And responsibility, Allah does not make one responsible for more than one is able, but it doesn't mean that Allah does not make us responsible, right? There's two separate things, right? So, for example, if someone has trouble learning through reading, for example, like if someone's blind, are they not morally responsible to learn how to pray? No, because they can still hear. So you learn it in a manner that you are able, right? Someone may have a bad memory, but there may be a way for them to learn in a manner that they can retain and review, so that they're able to retain what they know, right? So in those specific circumstances, one learns. And also the other aspect is that part of the lack of knowledge in our times is people make the religion much more difficult than it needs to be. That what is the prayer? Sometimes people give converts like a 500-page book on prayer. This is your guide to the Muslim prayer. You ask the person giving the guide, do you do all those things? Say no. Then why did you give it to this new Muslim? Or someone who wants to start practicing their deen. Right? Which is why, the basic prayer, if you ask the Hanafi, said that you can teach it within a couple of minutes. Imam al-Ghazali would argues that, well, it may need a little more than the beginning of the time for it to be taught soundly, but either way, it doesn't take very long. Okay? I heard from one of the students of Habib Omar that once they were traveling with him in one of the African countries, and by the roadside, there was this man standing, he was waving. And this man had just become Muslim. They started talking to him, and they're headed to the airport actually. He said, can I come with you? He said, yeah. So I have a question. So I became Muslim, I don't know how to pray. So what do I do? So Habib Omar said, come with me. So Habib Omar took him to the washroom. He said, this is the wudu. And he did just the fard wudu. Even though one would know someone learned like Habib Omar bin Hafiz, he does even the subtle sunnahs and adab. We did the basic wudu. Said, can you do that? Said, yes. Said, show me. And he sort of coached him through it. Said, good. These are the things you have to wash and you have to wipe your head. Can you remember that? Said, yes. Said, okay. Now we need to go and pray. So find yourself a clean place. Do you know which way the sun rises? Say yes. You have to face in that direction. Okay. So you face in that direction, in a clean place. Any place will do. And this is what you do. How do Muslims begin? And he sort of coached him through it. And literally it took him like 2 minutes to explain the wudu, a couple of minutes to explain the prayer, and that's it. And said, now, do you know any Muslims? Yes. Go and learn the Fatiha from them. This is the first chapter of the Quran. Very easy to learn. Can you do that? Said yes. In the meantime, do this. Can you do that? Said yes. So let's do it together. So he prayed Asr with Habib Omar and Maghrib with Habib Omar. Right? So he coached him that. He raised his voice just a little bit so he could hear it. Said, would you be able to do that on your own? Said, can you practice once just to? And then they prayed Maghrib together again. So he prayed within literally an hour and a half maybe. But of that, the instruction, that's the level of detail. Right? Our religion is not difficult. Right? وَلَنْ يُشَادَّ الدِّينَ أَحَدٌ إِلَّا غَلَبَ. That no one will make the religion difficult for themselves except that it'll overwhelm them. But if you make it difficult for others, it'll not just overwhelm them, it'll turn them away. Right? So it's not meant to be complicated. Right? It's not meant to be complicated. Next question.
How important is it to learn Arabic?
Learning Arabic is not in itself obligatory. Right? If you're a Muslim and you don't know Arabic, you're not committing a sin. However, it is highly praiseworthy because the Quran has been revealed as an Arabic Quran. Right? The Quran is those words revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, as revealed, that inextricably and inseparably indicate the meanings that they indicate. Right? It's a nazmu dallu ala al-ma'na. It's those revealed words that necessarily indicate those meanings that they indicate. That is the Quran. Of course, the Hanafi scholars, when they talk about the Quran, they don't call it a lafz. Because the word lafz, in Arabic, the word for word, lafz, or in Urdu lafz, is ma yulfaz, is that which is thrown, that which is cast out of the mouth. And the Quran is mu'azzam, it is venerated, it's not something that just comes out. So they say a nazm, because nazm is also a word for word, but nazm is that which is perfectly ordered. That which is perfectly ordered, like in perfect sequence, like perfectly arranged pearls. He said nazmud durar. Right? So it is highly recommended to strive to learn Arabic, right? In order to be able to better understand the Quran, in order to be able to better reflect upon the Quran, which we've been commanded to do. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Do they not reflect deeply upon the Quran? But if you do not know Arabic, your capacity to reflect deeply is limited by that incapacity. But it is also equally true that Arabs need to learn Arabic. Because to appreciate the Quran fully, or to begin to appreciate the Quran fully, you need to appreciate Arabic as understood by those who lived in the time of revelation. Right? And how do you do that? The purpose of the sciences of the Arabic language. Nahu, sarf, balagha, the sciences of grammar, and the sciences of balagha, of eloquence or rhetoric. These enable not just basic understanding of Arabic, but firstly, sound understanding. Number two, deep understanding of Arabic. Rich understanding of Arabic. And the very proof of the Quran revolves around its linguistic inability. Its linguistic i'jaz. It's being linguistically inimitable. It's linguistic inimitability. Which is why Imam Jalal ad-Din al-Suyuti, who has a poem in the science of rhetoric, or Qud al-Jumman, it's a 1,000-line poem, science of rhetoric, he asks, in the commentary, the question is asked, that what is the virtue of the science of balagha, of eloquence? He said that it is not far-fetched to say that this science is a condition for the perfection of faith. Because the perfection of your faith is dependent upon immersing yourself in the depths of the meanings of the Quran. And you cannot do so without knowing and appreciating the eloquence. And this is the tool for doing so. So everyone should take that seriously. Even those who are Arab, most Arabs have no clue about the Quran. They may have some understanding of the basic literal meaning, but that's not. But even the literal meaning has levels, right? And there are tools. This is what they call ulumul ala. They're tools of even the linguistic understanding, that if Allah is saying something, even without interpretation or anything, what is being said, right? To have linguistic literacy, right? That you appreciate that there's levels of meaning that are being indicated. Through that, you're better able to reflect upon the Quran. And then to confirm that, is this meaning also entailed? So you go and look for it in the tafsir or confirm it with a scholar. So learning Arabic enriches your relationship with the Book of Allah if that is your purpose. You could learn Arabic just to read classical Arabic literature, and that's not a religious pursuit, but it could be. Similarly, if you want to appreciate the words of the Prophet ﷺ, who said, "Utitu jawami al-kalim," I was granted encompassing speech. I was granted comprehensive speech. His words were few, but they're bursting in meaning. And they cannot be conveyed fully in any other language. Right? And, as one of the scholars, Shaykh Salih bin Sidina, said, I'm amazed at someone who claims to love the Prophet ﷺ but doesn't learn his language. He says, what lover remains ignorant of the language of their beloved? Ajib. It's very strange indeed. Right? So I love the Prophet, but I don't want to understand what he says fully. The one who loves wants to know. Right? So it's praiseworthy, but it is praiseworthy. One's religious commitment should begin with learning what is obligatory upon you, what you must know to make your faith sound and clear, and to make your basic religious practice in your purification, your prayer, and the things you're engaging in life in accordance with the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's step number one. Inshallah, please make dua. Seekers Hub is in the process of launching a global, world-class Arabic program, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, and you'll be hearing more about it in upcoming weeks, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Go ahead.
According to the Hanafi madhab, what is allowed or disallowed during idda? For example, can one attend religious classes or gatherings of remembrance, as well as what is the difference of the conditions between a widow and a divorcee?
That's an important question, but it is subtle and nuanced, and my advice would be for that, if you refer to the Seekers Hub Answer Service, that's a good starting point. We have a number of answers with respect to the fiqh related to idda, both in the Hanafi school, and many Hanafi scholars point to the Maliki school's opinion with respect to idda, because it's slightly more expansive, and particularly if one finds oneself in a situation where one doesn't have extended family, right, or extended community support around one, then the Maliki position can be more expansive and easier to uphold than the relatively much stricter opinion in the Hanafi school. If you can uphold that position, then fine. But the schools of Islamic law are not different sects or religions. That this is my religion, this is my denomination, right? No, these are all valid and accepted to follow, and they're all respected ways of upholding the command of Allah and His Messenger. We strive to adhere to one, but if it proves difficult, or would entail hardship, or harm, or would be overwhelming to adhere to one, then the prophetic, this is one of the many implications of the Prophet's word, that Allah loves for His dispensations to be taken, just as He loves for His positions of resolve to be taken. Right? And one of the meanings of that is that the issues where there's difference of opinion, they only arise because out of divine wisdom, the guidance of Allah and His Messenger allows for this potential range of interpretations. So we strive in general to uphold the school that we follow, to have consistency, to have a standard of practice. But if it proves, any of those reasons, it proves difficult or hard, or there could be harm in it, or you would feel overwhelmed by it, you're not ready for that yet. It is better for you to be upholding an opinion that is sound and valid and accepted than for you to say, I'm not going to obey the command of Allah. All the positions, if you're following a valid mainstream opinion within the four schools, right? You are in a state of obedience of Allah and His Messenger, right? So the details you can find we have a number of answers, both of the Hanafi position of idda, but also the Maliki position. There's some answers by Shaykh Rami and Sur and others who are reliable Maliki scholars regarding that. And Shaykh Faraz Khan, who's himself a trained Hanafi scholar, he relates the Maliki opinion as a facilitative dispensation for the reasons that I've outlined.
So the link for whoever asked us was posted in the Facebook chat, if you can check there. Next question is, what is the difference between waswasa and ego?
Waswasa is misgivings. Right? Waswasa is internal whisperings, right? Whether those whisperings come from the shaitan or they come from one's own desires or capricious inclinations, right? There could be different sources of waswasa, right? But waswasa is misgiving. Your ego is your arch enemy, right? It's your inflated sense of me, myself, and I, right? And the ego in the negative sense is your blameworthy qualities, right? At one level, your ego is you. It's yourself, right? But it's the nafs, right? The nafs is you. It's you yourself, but it's also your lower self. It is majma'u sifat al-dhamima, right? It's like the gathering place of all your blameworthy qualities, right? Right? Now, waswasa can lead to that, but and the lower self, makes one inclined towards desires and whims that disadvantage or distance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the way one judges one's inclinations is to consider their consequences. Right? We'll close with something we just looked at earlier. It's related by Imam al-Bayhaqi in Az-Zuhd al-Kabir, and with his chain of transmission, that Al-Hasan al-Basri radiallahu ta'ala anhu, one of the greatest of the generation after the generation of the companions of the beloved Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to frequently remind those around him, particularly of the young, Ya ma'ashara shabab, right? O young ones, alaykum bil akhirah, seek the hereafter, fatlubuha, right? Hold fast to the hereafter and seek it. فَكَثِيرًا رَأَيْنَا مَنْ طَلَبَ الْآخِرَةَ فَأَدْرَكَهَا مَعَ الدُّنْيَا. Says because we have frequently seen those who made their goal the hereafter, but they also attained this dunya. They also had worldly attainment. وَمَا رَأَيْنَا أَحَدًا طَلَبَ الدُّنْيَا فَأَدْرَكَ الْآخِرَةَ مَعَ الدُّنْيَا. But we've never seen anyone whose goals were merely worldly and they attained the hereafter with that. Right? Meaning, prioritize the akhirah. And if you do so, you may well also attain the dunya. But if your goals are merely worldly, you're not going to attain the hereafter. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who have that attainment. This, of course, there's many prophetic promises related to this meaning. We'll stop here and we'll begin the Mawlid, inshallah, right after Salat al-Maghrib. But we'll take one more question if there is. Go ahead.
Is choosing the most religious woman one can for marriage always the best choice for following the
Okay, that's a very absolute question. So, is marrying the most religious woman always the best choice? No. Because the most religious, right? The first thing, it depends on what you mean by religion. Right? Because people's notions of religiosity are often skewed. And it's clear from the Prophet ﷺ's teachings that religiosity is not just having a lot of religious matters in one's life, but the heart of religion is that you truly care about Allah and His Messenger, and you truly care about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation. Ad-deenun nasiha, right? Religion is to truly care. Religion is true concern for Allah, for His book, for His Messenger, and for all people, right? So that's one aspect. The second aspect is that related to that, the Prophet ﷺ made it incumbent that you should marry someone of religion and good character. Right? And people's notions of good character tend to be skewed and stunted. But you might not be ready for, spam, super perfect, awesome Muslim. Right? Right? Like you might not be ready for that, right? Because you may be far short of that, right? Or it may just be a dream or an illusion, right? So that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, if there comes to you someone whose religion and character is pleasing to you, right? There's also the notion of compatibility, right? Because people are human beings. They have temperaments. They have capacities, right? So you may not be able to handle that, right? So we cannot make an absolute statement that, the aspect of they're being pleasing to you, but yes, we prioritize religion and good character with a sound, understanding of what it means to be religious, and with a sound understanding of what it means to have good character. But that subtle aspect of them being pleasing to you is important. Too. So it's not a mechanical thing and judging religion is not a simple thing. There's no equation that A plus B minus C equals deen. I said, okay, Brother Zubair has come, A plus B minus C, he gets a 67. Now I need a 75 or more. That's not how it works, right? So, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's clear also from the Sunnah that you cannot complicate it. Right? You cannot complicate it. The Sahaba didn't engage in very complicated analytics when it came to marriage choices. Right? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facilitate. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.